here in California, specifically down here in San Diego, since we border Mexico, there have been a bunch of troops sent from bases here in San Diego. Since we have a lot of Marines down here, they did send a bunch of actual U.S. federal troops, not National Guard. This is not like Gavin Newsom saying, I've increased National Guard by 50% by going from 4 people to 6 people. This is legit. Like, they sent a bunch of Marines down at the order of Donald Trump, and there's a video from
500 was the number.
It says 1,500 troops to the border. I don't know if it's our border specifically. So there's 1,000 soldiers, 500 Marines who were previously stationed in San
that's
Diego.
where I thought somehow they were all for the San Diego border, but okay. So
that would have been a lot. 1,500 might have been.
I mean, there's a lot of miles of border, as we've discussed before.
So, all right. So this is a video from NBC7. Good friends over at NBC7. Thank you. So,
are continuing to take shape. Meantime, after declaring a national emergency on day one, his administration is sending 1,500 troops to the southern border.
And we now know hundreds of those troops are already stationed near San Diego. From the border in San Isidro, NBC7 Shelby Bremer has more on what it will look like in the coming days.
This is an area where many migrants have arrived to seek asylum, and several aid organizations have set up to help them as they wait to be picked up. As the military prepares to send more troops to the border, the people who are here every day say there's just so much uncertainty about what's ahead.
Save for the wind, it's a pretty quiet day at the U.S.-Mexico border in San Isidro.
The concept of an invasion is inconsistent with what we see.
Adriana Hasso assists the migrants who arrive here seeking asylum. In the coming days, her work may evolve as President Donald Trump sends 1,500 more active duty service members to the southern border.
We certainly hope that that the military has a clear delineation of no contact with migrants or with people because they're not trained.
500 of those are Marines who were on standby for wildfires in Southern California. The Department of Defense will also run deportation flights for more than 5,000 people already detained in San Diego and El Paso.
What Trump is doing is taking a military-first approach to a problem that is, at the end of the day, not a military problem.
Congresswoman Sara Jacobs says this effort diverts military resources from national security challenges around the world.
We need to be addressing the root causes of why people are coming and needing to seek asylum in the U.S., like addressing governance and corruption and rule of law and violence.
The national emergency.
I want to stop and comment on what Congresswoman Sara Jacobs just said there about how this is not the proper use of the military is to defend the border or patrol the border. She said we need to use it for other. She hopes that they're not diverting military away from other uses. I'm trying to imagine Sara Jacobs. She didn't give us any examples of what would be those other uses that we need the military for besides defending our own border. And then she goes on to say, this really isn't an issue of national security. Okay, so is defending your border not part of national security? Because I think that might be one of the most basic forms of national security is defending your border. Correct me if I'm wrong. I just find it funny that she thinks this isn't national security and this is not what we should be using the military for. But she didn't give an example of like what else we should be using the military for. Hopefully not fighting wars over in, other countries, which I wouldn't be surprised. She is the granddaughter of Qualcomm. Qualcomm might make technology for weapons or defense manufacturers, so I wouldn't be surprised about that. But regardless, she didn't say what we should be using the military for outside of defending our border. So I thought that was pretty interesting for her to say that. What do you think?
I noticed that as well. And then there was the prior comment. I'm not sure if she was the one who made it, but they were supposed to be on standby for the fires. And now anybody in the comments can correct me if I'm wrong, because I really don't know how this works between the firefighters. And I have heard of I had a brother-in-law who was in the Air Force, but his job in the Air Force was firefighting. So I understand that we use forces for those kinds of things. But as we've had these fires raging on, we're talking about how the firefighters are understaffed. And it's like, well, how come we don't have more firefighters? Why do we have the Marines standing by for the fires when I thought the Marines were supposed to be protecting us? Isn't that why every every Memorial Day, Veterans Day, we're like grateful for these who have served to make our country free. How do people think that works? They protect us, they defend us, whether that's at the border or overseas. And you and I are both, we're like, let's stay out of wars. But how about we protect our borders here and have our,
Right.
our military here? So yes, I agree with you, and I did catch that.
If she doesn't remember, the position that Pete Hegseth was just confirmed by a narrow margin to in the past couple days, his position is called Secretary of Defense, not Secretary of War and military uses for other things. It's Secretary of Defense, meaning we should be using the military for our own defense. And I'm sure you can get down in the mud about the arguments of, well, these people aren't, they're not threats or anything like that. Or do we really need to use military force for people who are coming here? Well, considering we have an enormous fentanyl problem, considering that cartels move a ton of drugs and people and human trafficking across the border, there is an argument about national security when people, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people dying from fentanyl every single year. I would think that's national security. Maybe we should kind of take a closer look at what is and who is getting fentanyl across the border. So I again, we were just talking about tribalism with public school teachers and ICE agents. This is sort of the same thing where Sara Jacobs just knows this is the company line of I have to toe for the Democratic Party. Of this is not really, we shouldn't be using the military to defend our borders. Like, this is inhumane. Like, this is a humanitarian crisis. And the other thing she said that I almost jumped out and paused right away. She goes, we have to address the root causes of why people are coming here. Forgive me, we're $40 trillion in debt. Why do we have to address the root causes? Don't the root causes come from those other countries?
Yes.
Like in Honduras or Colombia or like any of these places, like El Salvador, why is it our job to tackle their root causes in a whole other country when we have so many problems here? That's also not our responsibility either. And that's sort of her worldview is we have to go and drop a ton of money, or I don't know what her solution is, but again, we have so many problems here for her to say, oh, we need to go tackle the root causes in those countries. No, like, that's not our problem. Why? Now, could we work with the governments? Sure, but it's not our fight to fight and go into those other countries and tackle those root causes.
We have a lot going on here, yes. And we need to protect here. And I think that people don't understand that that's what we mean by America first. We're not saying we don't care about anything else, but it's just like, we have a lot of issues here, and we're literally like, if you are having like issues in your family, yes, there's you still have to go to work, you have to whatever, but like you kind of like need to like settle down and settle your issues in your own family, and figure those things out. Like, I'm a mom, and if there's things going on in my house, I shouldn't be like, if I have an out of control child, I don't mean for a day, I mean like I have a whole behavioral issue that I'm dealing with as a parent, like about a child, whatever. Like, my job isn't to go out and fix someone else's kid. Like, no, I need to stay home and like work on what's going on here. What are our issues here? And it doesn't mean that other people don't matter, but how did it become our responsibility? And something that, like, she didn't say these words, but she said it, like, she made it sound like the military, and yes, they're absolutely trained for combat and everything, but she made it sound like they're just going to go down there and start like blowing people up or something. And I felt like that was so judgmental, because we've all seen in war, in combat, there's terrible things, but we've all seen the photos of the military literally carrying out the women and the children and the animals. And even at the border, as they're coming, they're there like, okay, you're not supposed to be here, but you're here, and we're not going to like let you drown. There's the boats that overturn, and they're out there rescue them. I mean, like, they're people with compassion too. And I didn't like the way that she made it sound like now they're at the border, like they're going to start all this stuff. Like, No, why would you make it like that's all they do? Because that's not all they do. They're human too. So I didn't
Yeah.
like.
Yeah, it kind of looks at military members in a narrow light of like they're all just trained killers, and like their job
Yeah.
is to go down to the border and start shooting at people coming up to the border. When in reality, like the video just said, they were just standing by to help with wildfires. I guess based on Sara Jacobs' logic, they were going to shoot the wildfires or bomb the wildfires into like submission. But no, like a lot of military are trained for a multitude of things. And oftentimes they end up just being support for the people on the ground, like Border Patrol, who handle this. They're just extra set of hands. They're just extra manpower. They're just there to help. Like they're not there to, like she says, like like she thinks they're just rolling up tanks and like blowing away like people walking up to the border. It is, you're right. You're absolutely right. It is insulting to demean military members to the point of thinking they're just trained killers who are going to stand there and shoot at them. They're there to lend support to Border Patrol, who is, overwhelmed. They've been overwhelmed these past 4 years. So
They're also trained medics. There's like all kinds of things that they can do to actually help people.
Right.
So
there's a couple seconds left, so let's just finish it up right now. We'll move on.
Agency comes as border crossings have fallen. Just 96,000 in December, Customs and Border Protection says, compared to more than 300,000 that same month 1 year before. Hasso says she and the migrants they've...
Well, okay. I know we just paused. I'm going to take a wild stab in the dark without really knowing the numbers. They said that, so in December, the border crossings were down to 96,000 just in that month, which still seems like a lot of people, down from 300,000 a year before. I am going to take a stab in the dark that is 100% the Trump effect of once Trump got elected and they were 1 month from him being inaugurated, people are not trying to cross the border anymore, as opposed
that's
to
what
the
I
Biden
also
administration.
assumed. Yes, that's where, and I don't know that for a fact either, but that was when I read that or heard that, I thought, because he was elected, it was kind of like people knew, like, okay, we're not just going to be able to just walk across. We're apparently going to get our heads blown off by military. No, that's a sick
According
joke.
to Sara Jacobs, it's just going to be like duck hunt for.
Yeah, if you're listening to Sara Jacobs, then that is I would certainly stay away from the border if that's what I was listening to. So yes.
Let's finish it up.
They've seen this week are now feeling an added layer of anxiety.
They wanted to hear from us if they were going to be okay, if they were still on time, or is it too late?
Those troops are expected to be in place today or tomorrow, and the military is already flying helicopters to support CBP with additional aerial resources available in the days ahead. In San Ysidro, Shelby Bremer, NBC7.
All right. So there was a couple more seconds. That's okay. Didn't need to watch the rest of that. Anyway, like she said in the end, it was they're bringing more helicopters. They're bringing more support for CBP. I don't think it's out of the realm of normalcy to think that the military should be supporting our border. But here we are. I mean, I know that they're all going. California, I think in Arizona they've gone down. Like Texas, I know they've definitely gone down in Texas. So it's a loud and clear message to people that the border is closed under Donald Trump. He's declared it a national emergency. The border is closed.